Колеги, дякую за чекання.
Thank you for waiting. Thank you, everyone who watch us online. The topic is start of the National Agency for Corruption Prevention is under threat. Volodymyr Syschenko, member of the Election Commission, Viktor Chumak, MP, Poroshenko Bloc faction, who was elected on the agency. So I give the floor to the speakers, and Serhiy Leschenko will join us soon. Viktor, please come on stage, and there will be a fourth speaker, Vitaly Shabunin, and I give the floor to the speakers. Good afternoon, dear colleagues, and I would like to start. First, I took part in the contest and I was elected. That's why I can't speak about those aspects of the procedure, of the contest procedure, and I can only speak about why I believe that it's very important to start the activity of this body and why this institution is so important. First, I would like to say that during the last month, we had focus, all activity was focused on the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and Anti-Corruption Prosecutor's Office, but NACP didn't have much attention from the public and the media, but I believe that this is the main anti-corruption body, and I want to say why. Because this agency is the body of preventive action that does everything in order to prevent corruption. Other bodies, they work and they fight corruption, but this body prevents corruption. That's why it is included in the title, the word prevention. First, all the procedures and policies are developed by this agency, and anti-corruption policy is in the sphere of public service, and anti-corruption policy also is in the sphere of different bodies of power and in the sphere of realization and the conflict of interest. This is very important sphere, the conflict of interest, because a lot of our politicians work in conflict situations. They have business interests, and they also are elected on the positions. The activity of the agency wasn't highlighted properly in the media, and this agency will study these conflicts. And the very important task of this body is verification of lifestyle and declaration, and how they correlate the lifestyle and declaration. So each civil servant he submits declaration, and starting this year there will be new format of declaration. They will be submitted by electronic means, and they should declare not only incomes and expenditures, but also all the assets that public servant has. So they can have some money in the safe, or and pictures, libraries, jewelry, and other things. So his lifestyle is studied. Could this civil servant have these things, and how does it correlate with his salary, his incomes? So this will be verified by this body. This is very important, and if these e-declarations won't work, we will have a big problem, because this is one of our main tasks in order that Ukraine obtain the visa-free regime and other preferences. So this board, Serhiy Leschenko will go in some details about this body, but this body will monitor the financing of political parties and the expenditures. It will be done, and they will cooperate with the Central Election Commission. And yesterday we had the note that they already provided funds for compensation of for political parties' activities, and this is one of the main functions for this body. It's very important for the system. And if they find that there is some discrepancies between expenditures and incomes of public servant, they can provide information to National Anti-Corruption Bureau and National Investigation Bureau. They can provide information on the activity of this public servant. They can apply to these agencies, and they can be included in the criminal investigation against these public servants. This body, the system of bodies, is necessary for every country. It works in different countries, and preventive bodies and law enforcement bodies that investigate different types of crimes. If this work isn't started, we will lose a whole year as a minimum, because there won't be any system of declaration and financing of political parties, and it will be very difficult to investigate cases of the conflict of interests. So the whole year of anti-corruption activity would be lost, and in this way all our promises, all our agreements also will be spoiled. So there was a message from the government that we should select 5 people who will start work, and this is very important. Why 5 people? Because we have only 3 people today, and according to the law, the system of taking decisions in the National Anti-Corruption Agency, the majority can take decisions, but only if all these decisions are consensus decisions. So if there's no consensus, the decision will be blocked. And 3 people, they can't elect the head of the agency. So because the head cannot elect himself, and there will be a conflict of interests. That's why 3 people cannot work resultative. So the head only can provide all the activities and sign the documents. And that's why the work is not started. So I believe that this week the Commission should get together and to elect other 2 people for the agency. I can't say who are these people. This is the decision of the Commission, but they should elect these people in order that the agency started its work. Thank you.
Good morning, dear friends. We have critical situation now because Serhiy Leschenko, an MP and blogger, I am. The situation is really critical because the last month President Poroshenko signed the law on prevention of corruption, which we had prepared in the parliament, incorporating the Venice Commission's proposals as well as civil society's proposals, and it supposes that the political parties will get funds and from January 1st should be transparent and meet transparency criteria. Only transparent parties may get governmental funds for their operations, for their political party activities. This body which takes decisions on this matter is just this National Agency for Corruption Prevention. In Ukraine, this body has gained the functions of anti-corruption bureau. In many countries, anti-corruption offices have both functions, overcoming corruption and preventing corruption. But in our country, the National Agency for Corruption Prevention will take decisions whether the party is transparent and whether it meets criteria for granting the governmental funds. So some methodological support or body which has symbolic functions. No, this is a very serious structure which should work in combating corruption, and it is important to get financial support from the European Union, because according to the addendum to the agreements on macroeconomic financial support, Ukraine should report about the number of corruption crime cases initiated. This benchmark will be used to assess whether Ukraine meet the anti-corruption criteria. So the National Agency for Corruption Prevention is one of the main components of this anti-corruption system, and it is this body is in the focus of manipulation. We are tired, as well as Europeans, about such scandals. Just several months ago, we had similar manipulation when the members when there were attempts to form the membership of the National Agency for Corruption Prevention from of the persons which are not integral, which are not impartial, with falsified documents. Some members of a nomination commission were just tried to be formed of some strange persons, but this plan was avoided. Now we have the same situation. This is a negative signal from our authorities to Europe, which also compromise trust of Ukrainian society. So we will try to block the members, the nominees from being elected to the membership of the National Agency for Corruption Prevention, which do not meet impartiality and integrity criteria. I am a member of the Competition Commission for selection of members to the National Agency for Corruption Prevention, where I represent the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine, and I understand very well the responsibility of the selection commission members in the start and launch of this new body, which have special status. The members of the commission till the two latest meetings tried to cope with the challenge and to select members of National Agency for Corruption Prevention and to start its operation before the new year or at the very beginning of the next year. But now I should state that I was included in the membership when the nominees have been shortlisted. Only 20 nominees we had at that moment. When I looked through the documents of the nominees, now I can tell you publicly that all nominees do not meet eligibility criteria and model which has every member of commission because of objective reasons. When the society is not healthy, it is hard to find ideal nominee to whom the society would have no claims about. Anyway, we had to select of those 20 shortlisted nominees. We have selected 9 nominees. They were subjected to special examination. The Cabinet of Ministers issued its no objection as concerned no violation of anti-corruption legislation, but by those persons. But frankly speaking, every nominee during the special examination was found some shortcomings. One of the nominees did not declare 500 hryvnias of his income. He had discrepancies between incomes and expenditures by 500 hryvnias, but I was impressed by one declaration where one of the candidates, instead of the spouse, declared his mother. When I asked him next day how it happened, he said that when he was feeling the declaration, he included his mother just by chance because there were several passports on the desk. We understood that we should use a method of compromise. Our commission was unhomogeneous because it was formed by quota principle. That is why the opposition inside of commission is in place. So the compromise approach is the only way. First, all of us made a no objection decision about the 9 candidates, and upon reconciliation and consent between the members of our selection commission, then we had the second stage interviews, and we were to take a decision to recommend nominees to an ACP. I would like to say that in the commission we have 3 representatives by posts representing executive authorities, and the first deputy Minister of Justice who heads the commission, the head of the State National Agency for Civil Service, and the deputy head of the presidential administration. Besides that, there are 4 members of the commission elected by the anti-corruption civil society because special mechanism was launched where 50 anti-corruption NGOs submitted their votes. We took people who should represent the civil society, which is not satisfied with the situation as concern anti-corruption efforts. So I thought that these representatives should be for those candidates who also represent this anti-corruption society. But there were only 2 such candidates who represent, to my opinion, the anti-corruption civil society. They differ in their professional background and results of their activities in anti-corruption activities, but they are real, actual representatives of general public, and I thought that they should be such uses. And the second member, Mr. Skopich, he is a civil servant who is a deputy head of the National Agency of Civil Service. I liked when Mr. Syschenko at the first stage of voting for formation of this 20 nominees. At the first interview, he withdrawn his candidature because he is the head of the civil service agency, so he did not vote. But anyway, Mr. Skopich came to the next stage interview, and when we elected the members of the commission, Mr. Syschenko changed his position. He stopped to see any conflict of interest, and he voted for Mr. Skopich. Thus, Mr. Skopich gained 6 votes. The decisions of our commissions are deemed legal when 6 out of 8 members of our commission voted for. One other aspect which I would like to emphasize is that Mr. Syschenko and Ms. Sevastianova at the final stages said that we should elect at least 3 members of NACP in order to launch its activities and to report to the European Union that we have launched its activities. The Commission always have been focused on 3 members, but not the full strength of 5 members of this NACP. So we had no unity. Our opinions differ about the other nominees, and The Commission tried to reach compromise because I told that if we didn't reach compromise, we could have failed to establish an ACP. So at least 4 members should have been elected, but our open previous agreements, initial agreements, they were videotaped, so we have video footage of our meetings, and we reached a compromise on initial stage, but just before the voting, one of civil society members rejected to vote, and at the time of voting, one other member of our selection commission, Mr. Leschenko, also did not vote, although he had agreed to vote for 3 times before the meeting. And he has very good characteristics as an anti-corruption activist, as an ATO member. He said that he stopped to vote, then the voting for other candidatures took place. So there are only 3 members who were elected to an ACP membership. I think this is a very bad situation, and I would like to say that the statement of the government, which was made yesterday, the Secretariat of the Cabinet of Ministers, they made a very interesting declaration. The name of this declaration or communication was the government demands to launch the agency's activity and to elect the rest of 2 members, and it sounds very strange for me that they demand, because they don't have right to demand anything. The government has no right to demand anything from the selection commission. So I offer to us to find brevity and find some patience and to elect the rest of 2 members to the membership of an ACP, and to find persons who will not betray. Vitaly Shabunin,
the main government and presidential administration and political elites, they are they really don't care about this system of assessment and the control of political finance. If commission is controlled, it acts against opponents. And both scenarios, the government and power, they play with all these things. And we tried to create this institution for 2 years, and we won't accept any of the scenarios. And visa liberalization will be postponed because of it for all of us. And is it a problem for political elites? No. They don't have problems with Schengen visas. This is our problem, not theirs. And we should solve it. Commission has the opportunity to work out the situation, and I would like to stress the personal responsibility of each member of the Commission, both from the power and from the public, because we all have questions to them. We have the opportunity to save this competition, this institution, and the system of declaration. And you are responsible for this. Thank you for your attention. Maybe your questions now. Thank you, dear guests, for your presentation. Do you have some questions or comments? No questions or comments. Everything was clear. Maybe we will end at this. So we wait for the news on the start of the work of the agency. Our next press briefing is at 12.